By a miracle, the holy war has ended. Gowther, out of his hatred for Mael, long before the betrayal of Meliodas, transformed Mael into Estarossa with a lesser memory manipulation magic. Due to the smaller scale nature of the magic, Gowther survives and is rewarded for his efforts against the goddess clan with his freedom. Due to the loss of their strongest archangel and the sudden betrayal of Elizabeth, the goddesses are left in a state of affairs far worse than ever before. The kings of the giants and fairies align themselves with the demon clan in order to avoid any harm coming to their people. The remaining archangels are slain by a combined effort of Zeldris and Meliodas, and the war is won. Estarossa, Droll, and Gloxinia are rewarded with clone commandments in order to lock their loyalties into the demon clan. All is well, and Meliodas reigns with everything he ever wanted. However, the Demon King himself is not all too pleased. He desires a younger vessel, but unfortunately for him, with the end of the war and all his commandments still being alive, with no threat to them outside a hidden away supreme deity, it's nigh on impossible that either of his sons will absorb them all, unless he provides incentive.
Zeldris, my loyal executioner,
The Demon King began, forming one more clone commandment of piety. Yes, my lord, Zeldris asked, within a kneel.
Your brother has become too much of a liability after this war. The rise in his power and status has already affected his foolish nature. He's no longer worthy of being leader of the 10 Commandments.
Zeldris shuddered, wanting to speak back, but being unable to.
He's no longer worthy of even being alive.
Zeldris bit back his words.
I want you to gather the commandments and execute him at noon. Understood?
Yes, my lord. After the Demon King blesses Zeldris with a copy of piety, tears stream down his face once his father's back turns. The next day comes, and Meliodas is drinking up a storm in a bar, Elizabeth trying to keep up to no avail when the door of the establishment is opened. Meliodas! The prince looks up, finding his younger brother. Zel, what's the matter? Finally ready to have a drink off with me? Zelda shakes his head and beckons his brother to follow him. Elizabeth clears Meliodas' head with invigorate, and Meliodas senses them all outside. A wayward grin comes to his face as he follows his younger brother, grabbing his massive blade on the way out. Meliodas, under orders of the Demon King, your life is to be taken by the commandments for your reckless behavior, Zeldris says, drawing his blade. You may go quietly, or by force. The rest of the commandments look upon their leader with quiet concern. Meliodas simply throws his head back and laughs, the familiar dominant aura of darkness rising from his form as the demon mark grows and his eyes darken. The old man's finally lost it, huh? Well, my commandments, I hereby decree one last order. Meliodas readies his blade, and all the commandments tense, nervously grinning. Don't hold back! Meliodas lunges into battle, and the fight begins. What's up guys, Dago the Pencil here, and yes, it's time to discuss what would happen if the mighty leader of the 10 Commandments faced off against his legion of deadly demonic warriors. Who would win between Meliodas in his prime versus the 10 Commandments and a combination of both of their incarnations? Let's talk. Now, I'm specifically using Prime Meliodas because we already saw what happened to post-Druid Meliodas when all the commandments weren't even there. He got mopped up pretty cleanly, and a post-Purgatory Meliodas, well, we'll talk about him real quickly later. Now, Prime Meliodas, where does he stand? Pretty high, very high in fact. He has feats, scaling, and statements that put him above a lot of characters. For his feats, he alone fought off Mael, repelling the strongest archangel, pulls up on Ludishel in Demon Mark with no commandment, is ready to fight off against 3 of the 4 archangels to support Elizabeth, and doesn't instantly die in a fight with his father and the supreme deity. For his scaling, Prime Meliodas is actually relative to, if not stronger than the Meliodas that bullied both Zeldris and Estarossa at the same time, thanks to Prime Meliodas still having his commandment compared to post-resurrection assault mode Meliodas. This same weaker Meliodas is the one who bullies a late morning Escanor while toying around, and is implied by Zeldris and even Escanor to have been able to defeat the one if he was actually being serious. This same Meliodas bullies Cusack as well, slapping him. For his statements, according to his father, in his prime he was the most wicked and all-powerful demon outside the Demon King himself. According to Zeldris, Meliodas is his superior. And this Zeldris fights against a ranged Full Wings King and also bullies the late morning Escanor and even holds back the one and fights alongside and at least is relative to the original demon, who is overall a monster in his own right. And Zeldris scales relative to that. But he is inferior to Meliodas according to his own admission. If this fight is anything to go off of, decently inferior as well. So where does that leave the commandments? Well, I hate to say it, but they aren't really left in a good spot. We know a lot of the original commandments that we don't get to see much of are either not that strong, have no feats, or just get smacked up raw power-wise. Arnok and Zeno get off-screen by Meliodas, Commodios get smacked up by no commandment Droll and Gloxinia, Dariari and Monspeet, while admittedly not in their prime, get smacked up by post-resurrection base Meliodas and get slaughtered by Demon Mark post-resurrection. However, in their prime, they get bullied by Ludishel, who Meliodas and Demon Mark was confident in fighting off. Post-Druid Meliodas In base, Blitz bodies Galen out of his prime, who gets bodied by Ludishel in his prime. Once again, Meliodas is ready to fight Ludishel and just Demon Mark. Fraudulent is fodder, getting matched up by a clone of base post-resurrection Meliodas. Malacia gets destroyed by post-training King and Diane. Greyroad got cleaned up by Infinity Merlin. Joel and Gloxini were easily being cleaned up by a Demon Mark post-Druid Meliodas and died a true form Chandler. Esterosa gets mopped up by Escanor in post-resurrection Assault Mode Meliodas. Zeldris gets slapped while being at his strongest and admits inferiority multiple times. The Gowthers are wild cards, but even a post-memories Gowther pre-final Demon King fight is way weaker than a true power-based Chandler and original Gowther. And even original Gowther, while considered a threat to the Demon King, was worried about fighting Zeldris, not to talk of Meliodas. And a wild thing to note is that all these characters who beat these commandments are either weaker than or at best relative to a prime full power Meliodas. That means some commandments who are purely power based get outright negged. Galen, negged. Derriere, negged. Fraudulent, negged. Droll, negged. Esterosa, negged, kinda. Monspeed, negged. Zeldris, negged. Calmadios, Arnak, Zeno, negged. However, as we know, power is not everything, and there are some ways the commandments could hypothetically pull out a win over their leader. 1. Endura. And by Endura, I don't just mean Monspeed and Derriere. I mean Zeldris yanking out his 6 hearts and going Endura too. If Meliodas doesn't transform, that could easily clear the power gap for them, especially if it's Zeldris. But the main issue is whether or not Meliodas would even let them transform. Like Galen, Meliodas appears to know about the Endura transformation, so the likelihood of him letting that slide is very low. Though it's possible if he's toying around, and that could lead to his demise if Zeldris goes all out. Best case scenario for Meliodas to do is transform himself or stall Zeldris out the best he can. For Monspeed and Derriere Endura, the reason I think Meliodas could hold a candle to them at his max is because of how Elizabeth, someone Prime Meliodas is relative to, if not straight up above, managed to hold back both Endura Monspeed and Derriere at once. All Meliodas has to do is kill them one at a time at his peak, and they have 1 heart, so he can definitely do that. Zeldris will likely defeat Meliodas raw power-wise if he goes Endura and Meliodas doesn't, just because of his scaling and the wild thing that is the Endura amp. So if Endura by Zeldris, the commandments win. It's a win condition for him. Another win condition, Gowther landing a memory wipe, and I'm talking about either of them. If they hit Meliodas, Meliodas is done, mainly because my man is getting either knocked out, memory wiped, and possibly taken over. That's another win condition. Another win condition, Gloxinius somehow landing and cutting Meliodas with his Death Thorn. Uses potent poison. It should work out, especially with Gloxinius Disaster. Main issue is if it'll actually break Meliodas' skin. However, let's say it will, so win condition. If Esterosa manages to somehow full counter multiple blows from Meliodas, bam, win condition, because Meliodas bisects himself over and over until he can't regenerate no more. I know it sounds a bit dumb, but it's Meliodas in his prime, and he's known to be kind of stupid sometimes. So I wouldn't even be shocked if it happened if Esterosa played it smart and just kept leaping in front of killing blows and constantly full countering them back. Greyroad's 5 loss could work out. It could make Meliodas explode with darkness and destroy the entire area, but he would have lost all 5 of his senses and basically not be able to live, so that's still a hard L. And I think Malacia will be kind of useless since she only showcased her hacks as effective on Meliodas once Meliodas was beaten down and missing an arm, and even then Meliodas managed to resist her for a bit, so I don't think any of her things are going to work. She couldn't even hold him back when he was transforming, not to talk of Meliodas at full power. And if you're wondering why I haven't mentioned the commandments, like their actual commandments, as a factor in this fight, it's because Prime Meliodas still has his love commandment, so he's immune to all other commandments. He just has to make sure he doesn't hate anybody. And considering what he's been through, I doubt he does hate anybody. He probably looks at them in that Escanor mindset where he only pities them. So I think he's perfectly fine on that front. He doesn't have to worry about any of their commandments. And if you really want to cheat, you want to cheat and bring out the Chimera Endura, he was a commandment once, so technically you could use him. And he needed 5 of the end of series sins to take him down. I mean, kind of, you can argue against that. But let's just go with that. And the end of series sins, super strong. They fought the Prime Demon King. So he is a win condition amongst himself if you bring the Chimera Endura and he just munches on Meliodas. And there you go. The reason I bring up these win conditions as actual viable options to take out Meliodas rather than just saying Meliodas blitzes, one-shot, snatches their commandments, all done, is because Meliodas is known to play with his food. Play with Escanor even once he hit the 1 and got slapped for it. Play with Mael and Mael lived. Even Zeldris points out his brother's tendency to not take things seriously, so Meliodas suppressing himself to have fun against his group is actually extremely likely and could very well happen, so I could definitely see some of these win conditions actually happening due to his own nature. However, if Meliodas is remotely serious, then the fight is over. Since he knows the 10 commandments extremely well, since he is their leader, he would know who to attack first. With his speed, a speed that was able to catch Ludishel off guard and just Demon Mark and no commandment, big threats like Gowther, Monspeed, Derriere, and Zeldris are likely getting blitzed to oblivion if not knocked out and or killed. And if worse comes to worse, remember that drastically inferior Meliodas? You know, the one that absolutely annihilated an entire kingdom? Yeah, Assault Mode Meliodas can do that too, except it's likely going to be to a way larger scale considering how much stronger he is. And then the commandments die. Like, that's the thing. Honestly, if we're talking about how this battle would legitimately go head to head, I could very easily see some battles where Meliodas holds back, just being just that. Meliodas holds back and then he gets hit by one of these win conditions and it's over. Since there are multiple win conditions in this scenario, if one happens, my boy Meliodas, he's kind of done, son. Like, that's it. He either dies to poison, he dies to Endura that he lets happen by accident, something of the sort. But if we're being real, and we're not going to use the, in-character Meliodas, we're going to use a Meliodas who's remotely serious against his commandments, since he knows them well enough and he knows they're actually trying to kill him. I could very easily see Meliodas just bullying them. That's the thing. Meliodas is so much more powerful and so much faster than the majority of them. The only one who even remotely holds a candle to him anywhere near his full strength is maybe Zeldris. But even then, Zeldris kind of gets, like, you know how Escanor kind of walked through Ominous Nebula? Meliodas is very likely doing the exact same thing. He had no fear. That's the thing. In terms of raw power, there's a reason Meliodas was considered a monster. Like, there's a reason he was the most wicked and all-powerful demon, even according to his father of all people. He was definitely a beast among beasts, and if he ever took anyone seriously, they were likely going to die. And that's what would happen to a majority of the commandments. Because that's the thing, a lot of them just don't have, like, the speed feats or the power feats to really keep up with someone like Meliodas, because he's just that strong. Like, if I'm being completely real, I'm not exactly sure how to explain away a serious Meliodas or even a semi-serious Meliodas who's going for the dangerous people first. Because what do you want Gowther to do? What do you want Fraudrin to do? What do you want Derriere to do? What do you want Monspeed to do? Like, other than transform in some of their cases and just risk it all for killing Meliodas, I just really don't see what the solution is. And same case, like I said, I would mention the hypothetical post-purgatory Meliodas, but heck, a base post-purgatory Meliodas also pretty easily washes the commandments, if I'm being completely serious with y'all. Base. Because he's stronger than Assault Mode Meliodas, and I know that's a wild thing to say, but what did a base post-purgatory Meliodas do? He pulled up on Zeldris, but this wasn't just Zeldris, this was Zeldris with all the 10 commandments stacked on top of him, with the Demon King mentality, and Meliodas was just bullying him. So, I don't know. All these individual commandments were way weaker than even just regular Zeldris. Then you take that same Zeldris and you stack 10 commandments on top of him, and he gets bullied. I don't know. That's the thing. Meliodas kind of bullied, like, it's weird to say that he just solos the commandments. But that's how important the power gap is. Like, there's a reason Meliodas betraying the Demon Clan, like, flipped the entire Holy War in his head. No, started the Holy War in general. Because he was the power balancer, because he was that powerful. No one really stopped him. That's why Ludishel instantly, the moment Meliodas popped up in front of him, instantly called for help from Sarmiel and Tariel. He didn't even risk it. Like, the Endura, he had to get smacked around a little bit before he called for Sariel and Tarmiel's help. But the moment he saw Meliodas, he was like, you know what, boys? Yeah, we need to gang up on this man, and then we'll take out the commandments. That's the thing. Meliodas is so powerful, and he's so fast, that I'm not exactly sure, other than an in-character argument, for a way that the commandments can win. If y'all have something, if y'all have any and I know, like, people are gonna be like, well, if you take end of series Elders, I'm always iffy about scaling end of series Elders to, like, directly to the Demon King, because he specifically notes he isn't actually fighting the Demon King. He's fighting in a mindscape. So he actually has a chance against his father. He knows that his father and Meliodas are still way stronger than him. So I personally don't actually count that as, like, a feat for real, true bodies Eldris. Like, he could, if he pulled up on the Demon King, he could actually smack him. But I could see if you do, and if you want to take that end of series Eldris and throw him up against Meliodas, and yeah, he slaps the best out of Meliodas, because then he fought a character that mopped up Prime Meliodas. Of course, Prime Meliodas didn't have his commandment, but as you can tell, the Demon King didn't have a scratch on him in his fight against Meliodas and Elizabeth alongside the Supreme Deity. Meanwhile, Meliodas had more than a couple scratches on him. So I would say that if you want to take the end of series Elders and you want to go off the mindscape being the actual world and something like that, then easy, Zeldris GG cleans up Prime Meliodas. Still think he loses the post-purgatory Meliodas, but regardless of that, in terms of Prime Meliodas takes the cake Like, if he's actually being serious 9 to 10 out of 10 times. I don't really see a way winning, because he's going to lunge straight for Gowther. He's going to take Gowther out, and then he's going to take out Gloxinia, and he's going to take out everyone else, and then battle's over. But if you want to go with a more just, like, purposely playful, if you want to just say, yeah, Meliodas would never take his own members seriously despite knowing how dangerous some of them are, then I'd say it becomes like a 50-50. Because if there are multiple win conditions that if they activate, the commandments win. If they activate or if they land, the commandments manage to take the dub. But outside of that, I don't really see it going in the commandments' favor. But what do you guys think? Do you think the commandments can pull out this win? Do you think they can mop up Meliodas somehow? Please tell me in the comment section down below. If Meliodas is being serious too, like not just more win conditions if Meliodas isn't being serious and he's playing around with them, but win conditions for an actual serious full power Meliodas who's going for the kill or the defeat. What do you guys think? I want to know. Tell me in the comment section down below. And thank you guys so much for watching. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is that guy with a pencil, writing off.